It is the start of a new year. Welcome to 2025. I am Dustin, PolyInnovator. This is the Now Page Update, which is a series based off the idea by Derek Severs. So I've already mentioned this over 24 times throughout this Now Page series, but I just wanted to mention it again in case this is the first time you've seen me or for the first time you've seen this series. This vlog is not something that I'm trying to grow off of or anything like that. On this channel, I have my polymathy and knowledge management solo videos you could learn from. Those are what I meant to create to grow and get people interested. Then I had the Polymath Polycast, which is my interview series where I talk to people who are polymathic and generalists. And then I have these Now Page updates, which I'm posting really kind of for my own sake and for my family's sake down the line, because I figured if 20 years from now, I want to see what was I doing when I was building such and such thing or working on such and such phase. And so I wanted to have this documentation process of just what am I doing, who am I during this time, because we are different people every year, every month, every day. We evolve. And this is, I don't even know what number of the episode, but it's like 60 at this point, 60 something. And it's interesting because I've been doing this now for years, many, many years. Let me double check just so we can actually talk about it, because I think it's really cool. Now, page, okay, so January 2025 is 54. So it's a little less than 60, but still, the fact that I've been doing it for 54 weeks in a row is kind of insane. And the whole Now Page concept by Derek is literally just a matter of what is new professionally and what is new personally in life. And so, like, personally, I was having a situationship with somebody, kind of sort of seeing somebody, and that ended. And then professionally, I got a job at Express, the clothing store. It's actually been pretty nice. I'm actually kind of pleasantly surprised because I always heard bad things about retail, and there are some certain bad things about it, like people coming in just destroying everything, and okay, some annoying kids or whatever. Like, fine, like that makes sense. But the job is pretty low key, and it's been paying me better. I actually got a slight raise even, which is nice. And my boss is actually like very palatable. I can actually work with that person pretty well. And so professionally, like, that's not too bad. And I was hoping to have a remote job at this point so I could move to Austin, and that is something I'm still planning on doing. I've probably talked about it every single Now Page update for the last 2 years at this point, but Austin is the number one goal, and I am open to the idea of like San Diego or LA, but anywhere sunny. I can't go north. I can't do anything above Columbia, Missouri. And I'm realizing too, just once again, oh, the air is coming on, so hopefully that doesn't distract you from the sound. But I don't feel happy in Colombia, and no matter what I do, and no matter what anyone else does, I can't fix that until I move, and that's just something that's really weighing me down. And I kind of always talked about, like, if I had to stay in Colombia for one more winter, I was going to jump off the roof, which is obviously an exaggeration and just kind of insensitive in some ways. But I wanted to paint the picture for people to realize how much I do not like being here. And so it's just frustrating to me just how annoying the feeling of being here still is after half a decade of trying to leave. And so, as much as I love my family, I'll visit them. I'm always happy to travel, and I don't mind getting on the plane to visit family. As long as I can afford it, I really don't mind. And so, that's what I'm working on right now. It is very interesting because I'm not sure if I talked about this in the last Now Page update, but excuse me, I'm working on a content blitz. Not a sprint, but a blitz, because sprints weren't good enough. And I was already doing sprints throughout the year. And a sprint would be like doing a couple hundred things for this particular goal or something like that. So, for example, I did a sprint for Spotify where I posted nearly 200 clips, one each for every interview on the Spotify, because you can do TikTok clips essentially on there. You can do one per video. Okay, I'm going to do that. Well, if I'm going to be posting video clips, I might as well post the full length videos as well. So I painstakingly uploaded nearly 200 interviews. Only a couple of people were like blacklisted or something like that that I didn't bother doing the upload. But other than those like two people, I got everyone else up there. And considering that it actually fails to upload about 20% of the time, so I had to redo like 40 videos, it was very tedious and very slow, but I got it done. And that was one sprint. Another sprint is actually what I'm doing right now, and that's working on the Polymathy newsletter. And so I was really frustrated with myself this last year, where I wasn't able to keep up the consistency that I had done for 2 years prior. I had done, or close to 2 years at that point, depending on which newsletter, because I had my swimming newsletter, the content repurposing newsletter, and the polymathy newsletter, and I was actually consistent with all three, or relatively consistent with all three, for a very long time. I'm actually pretty sure, like, very consistent. I was doing it every week, even if I was a day or so late. I was still doing it every week, and every month I do this now page update, and I'm relatively consistent with that. I think last month I took about a week to do it, but that only happens like once a year. And so consistency is something I'm getting better at. And as a content creator, after putting in so many reps, that happens. But I think that if I can batch things out more, that would help out, especially considering the fact that I'm taking a more polymathic approach. And so I'm doing a lot of things. And so I think that if I could just do a sprint of polymathy posts and just do like 54, like right now, or just 52, I guess, for one for each week, I could just get the whole year scheduled out ahead of time. It's evergreen anyway, so it doesn't really matter when it goes out, because it's a matter of lifestyle and how you operate your life and how to manage multiple hobbies and organize your data and knowledge management. Those are all things that doesn't really change. It's very permanent. It's just learning basically. And so I thought, okay, let's get that newsletter all the way done for the rest of the year. And I've already gotten up to like halfway through January at this point, because I was doing last month too, last 2 weeks. And so I have about, I don't know if some of them, I think about like 39 posts or drafts on my blog. And that's because I wanted to have a way to save the video link without having it on a YouTube playlist, because it was just kind of complicated that way. And then I have about like 80 ideas in my Polymath newsletter folder. And so I'm going through each of those lists. I wish there was a way for me to combine them in a way. I could just take the ones I want to write about and make them to the drafts, but then there's a whole bunch of drafts mixed together, and I want to alternate them. So I have some video based posts and then just text based posts, and I want to alternate them each week, because I think that'd be a little bit more palatable and easier for people to absorb, not just have videos every week. And so this idea of coming up with these content is something that I could not get myself to do weekly. And I'm already going to be trying to do that with other series, particularly for Poly Tools, for example, too. And then another sprint is actually reposting a lot of my clips, because I have LinkedIn now to take care of. Facebook, I never actually touched before, really. And so I was like, okay, now that I have the ability to post to those platforms, because I could only do 4 before, and I chose Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Pinterest. And so I wanted to start doing those platforms too. And I actually thought, well, Pinterest is pretty open minded. I'll repost to Pinterest as well. And then I was like, well, I could also make new Instagrams for the two clipping shows. And so, like, one for PolyTools and one for the Polycast. I thought about making a new Polycast channel that was more focused on just clips. And that way I could have a backup channel if I desperately need to. And so I was like, oh, maybe I should make those and then syndicate the post to them, because it wouldn't be extra work. It would just add another channel to syndicate the post to. So I'm kind of waiting to post until I make those channels. And I guess by talking about it, I've made the decision to do it. I keep thinking about it. And thus, if I keep thinking about it, it probably means I want to do it. Like when I bought my first really fancy desk, I had looked at that desk over and over and over again for a year before I finally bought it, because it was really expensive for me. It was like $120, and back then that was a lot of money for me. And even the camera I'm using right now is the same way, the Elgato Facecam Pro. I had been looking at it for a long time before I actually eventually bought it, because it was expensive, like $300 for it. But I knew that I wanted it because how much I was thinking about it and obsessing over it and watching reviews for it and stuff like that. And I think that the fact that I keep bringing up those extra channels and socials, I was like, okay, it probably means I need to do it. One other thing I want to mention too before I wrap up here is the idea of notes and journaling. And so these now page updates that I do a blog post and a video. I'm actually doing the video first today, so I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to put in the blog post, but they're generally pretty different. And so if you ever are watching one of these, I encourage you to check out both, because sometimes I'll make the video first, sometimes I'll make the blog post first. And so I'll say something different in either one that's the second one, because I thought about something else that I wanted to mention. And so this idea of a monthly note has been this now page update. And I actually didn't realize that until like a couple months ago, because I never did monthly notes. And I was like, I don't need to. I have my, now page. And I realized it clicked. Oh, wait, my monthly note is the now page. And so, okay, that makes sense. And then and that's the only really public one that I do. Everything else is private on my Obsidian vault. And actually, one thing I've been kind of really mad at myself for being so lax about and not good enough working on it is the yearly note. So there was a one year, I think 2022, I actually did a lot because I kind of copied Ali Abdal's template and I tried to fill it out as best I could, but I didn't really quite like the format. And really, to me, it's all about just review and preview. And I just kept it simple. I think that having like quarters in the preview section is important, but other than that, like you don't need to divvy it up as much as Ali Abdal does. And so like that's just a difference in opinion. So here's a good template. Go check it out if you like. But I finally actually am writing out my yearly notes, and so I need to finish that. But in the middle of that, I was like, I need to make my now page update before I forget. And so right now, I wanted to schedule like these out, right? I wanted to work on these notes at specific intervals, like I do the monthly note. And so I was trying to figure out, like, I don't want to do them all on the first day of the year. Although I guess I'm kind of doing that right now. Maybe I'll do the quarterly note tomorrow. I think actually on my calendar, I have the yearly note on the 30th of December, and I ended up working on it the 30th, the 31st, and I'm finishing it today. I should have finished it last night, but I ended up trying to celebrate a little bit of the New Year's last night. The now page update monthly note today, and then the quarterly note on the second day of the month. Since I do the monthly note on the first, I was like, okay, let's not double it up and put too much pressure on the first day of the month. Let's spread it out and do the second day for the quarterly note. And so every year on January 2nd, and then it's like April 2nd or something like that, just repeating every 3 months. And I have it now on my calendar to repeat. So next year it should pop up. And I think that having that preparation is helpful for doing these notes because it's a reminder, but it's one of those things where you can tell Google Calendar to have it repeat every year at this particular date. And I think that that's something that most people don't think about. They don't think about it in that grand scale. They'll do it and they'll schedule it out maybe a month ahead or something like that. But I wanted to have this kind of set in stone. I plan on doing it every year going forward. And the reason why I think it's so important to have these notes is because the idea behind doing the notes is a matter of tracking what you're doing and trying to make sure you're actually making enough progress, and also too so you could look back on what you were doing during this time frame. And we're so bad about our memories and how we articulate our memories and just like even the actual function of our memories. So by doing these videos and blog posts and notes, I can have real concrete like memories that I've set in stone at this moment. And that way I can look back on it and be like, oh, so that's what I was doing. My brain kind of forgot about that. And I think that's a very important distinction to make. But thanks for listening. If you're watching this, please leave a comment down below. I don't generally do that in these particular now page updates, but since it's the first one of the year, I'm very curious to see if you watch this. I want to make things into a series that's worth watching, but really, again, the whole point is that documentation for my future grandchildren or something like that. And so, like, if you're interested, I'm happy to like make them a little bit more interesting. But on top of that, yeah, you get